Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our weekly series where we talk about topical life issues. And today is the fourth and final series on our family, marriage, and relationships. So, as usual, before we start, we'd like to hand over to our pastor to lead us in a word of prayer.
I want to thank God for everyone that God has been using for this program. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we want to say thank you. We give you praise, honor, and adoration. Lord, we commit today's discussions into your hands. Father, let your name be glorified. For in Jesus' name we have prayed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. As I said earlier, so today is our final episode of our relationship, marriage, and family series. And we've got two amazing speakers with us today, Dr. Damilola Omodara, and then we've also got Mrs. Tolufabiyi. Those of us who have been following us on the series will be familiar with Mrs. Tolufabiyi already, as she has been a regular on this episode. Today, our focus will be on the parent-child relationships, and we have the opportunity to ask our speakers questions around managing relationships with your children. I'll just give a quick bio on our speakers. So Dr. Damilola Omodara, she's a wife, she's a mother, and she's a lecturer in global public health at Queen Mary University in London. Mrs. Tolufabiyi is a certified relationship counselor. She's a lawyer, and she's married to her best friend, and together they both pursue intentional relationships. So don't forget to ask your questions on Slido. You have the login details scrolling on your YouTube video as you're watching. So to start us off then, Mrs. Dr. Omodara, I'll start with you. Just give us a bit context on parent-child relationship. Why is it important? What is it, and why is it important?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think I would just like to start off by, thinking about the word friendship and relationship. What does that mean? And it's very key in the life of our children. I believe friendship or building a relationship with your children should be reciprocal. Okay, so regardless of what age they are, it is important that we build a good relationship, a healthy relationship with our children. And when our children have a good relationship with us as parents, it makes their future brighter. Because while I was preparing for the session, one thing that came to my mind that the Holy Spirit just laid in my heart is seeing ourselves as parents as light to our children. And they need that light to be able to see. They need that light to be able to move. They need that light to be able to make decisions.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a good relationship with them, they wouldn't be able to enjoy that.
Dr. Omodara, we've lost your audio.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Please carry on.
Yes, so I said it's very key and important that we have a very good relationship with the children, because it established a strong bond with them.
Yeah.
It makes them to be socially active, because the way we relate with them goes along with our faith, the way they're going to also relate with other people in the society.
Thank you, Dr.
So I think having a relationship with our children is very key and very, very important.
Thank you, Dr. Omodara. I really, really appreciate that. I mean, you've talked a lot about healthy relationship and why it is important to have that with our children. We have, and I want to have to go on this and to discuss this in depth. But Mrs. Fabiyi, just to get your thoughts on the issue of parent-child relationship, what is it about and why is it important?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mrs. Fabiyi. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So just to add to what Dr. Dami has already said, in my opinion, I believe that God gives children. And when God gives you something, you have to take care of it. You have to nourish it. You have to cherish it. So in my view, I believe that children are somewhat like parents are somewhat like a caretaker for God's children. Mm-hmm. So if God has given you this child or these children to care for, you have to make sure that you do that assignment diligently.
Yes.
And your relationship with them sort of lays a foundation for their personality, their life's choices, and their general development in life. And like Dr. Dami mentioned as well, it also goes a long way to influence their own decisions and the way they also relate with either their spouse or their children or just friends. And just being able to be socially adept, being able to relate better with other people, make better and wiser decisions. So I think that relationship with parents and children lays a very good foundation, especially understanding that these children are from God and He has given us that gift which we're supposed to take care of and do, diligently.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fabiyi. Yeah, I mean, that's really important that parents are caretakers of these children. And while I still have Mrs. Fabiyi, I'd just like to ask you, I'm calling you a doctor already, prophetically, I guess. Well, I've still got you here. So what role does relationship, the relationship that you've had with your parents while growing up, what role do you think it has in the relationship that you then have with your spouses? Because you've talked about how it is important for parents, to have relationships with their children and how that then affects how they grow up, how they have relationships with other people. So from your own experience, what can you say about the roles that, the relationship that you've had with your parents during your own upbringing, how that affects your marriage relationship?
Interestingly, there's been a lot of research on topics like this, how the behavior of parents to their child, how it can affect that particular child's relationship when they become an adult and when they have a family or when they have their own children in so many ways. Now, in my view, I believe that the role of that relationship with the parents can manifest itself in different ways. So sometimes it could even be subconsciously. So maybe you've experienced an abusive parent, so you've been in an abusive family where both parents are abusive to each other, is just one parent, or they just lack some kind of communication strategy, or you have one parent that is very authoritative, or you have, the other parent that is sort of neglectful, these type of things, or you have a parent, I think I've heard of a very, I think it was meant to be a joke where the fiance went and visited his fiance's family, and he sat in the midst of his fiance's mother and father speaking, and then he could observe that the mother kept on interrupting the father, she wouldn't let him get a word in and things like that. And all of a sudden, I think he recorded that particular conversation, and then on getting back home, he tells his fiance that, well, this is what I've noticed. I hope you will not become like this. And she goes, oh, no. My mother is not like this. I would never become like this. And then he plays the recording to her. And then she goes, oh, wow, I've never really seen it that way. So what I've also noticed, even in myself, now is that there are certain things that our parents do, the dynamics that involve their own relationship with us as children that you may not necessarily have taken in while you were young, but then now that you're establishing yourself as an adult, finding your own identity, building your own family, raising your own children, you begin to see some of those traits in yourself. And if you're self-aware, you can be able to tell yourself, okay, this is not right. This is not who I want to be. I want to write a different story. So I think psychologically, yes, it can definitely affect the role that you take in your own relationship with your children or your spouse going forward. But it's just for you to be able to identify that this is what I've seen before and it's not what I want to repeat itself.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Fabiyi. So as parents, you're saying more or less that we can actually break the cycle. We can change from our own upbringing and then, bring up our own children in a different way from what we are used to. Coming back to you, Dr. Omodara, can you share your experience of how you manage parenthood in your marriage? And I mean, we've heard stories of people saying that when it's just you and your spouse, it's different. Then when you have a child, it's a different ball game. So can you share experience on how you manage that parenthood journey in your own marriage?
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting because I'm going to add one more thing to what you just said. So it's not just about the mother and the wife role, but it also has to do with if you are into a career
Yeah.
So how do you manage all these things together? Also, if you're into a ministry, how do you manage all that together? So balancing marriage, motherhood, careers, and ministry is not a small task
Yeah.
for women. And all of them, they're very important. So we can't say one is more than the other. It's important that you look after your home, look after your children. You also need to progress in your career. Also, if you have a ministry, for example, I'm committed in the church. I'm a worker in the church. I'm a mother. I'm a lecturer. And I'm a wife. So I have 4 roles together in one, and I have to learn to manage them all together. And to be quite honest, raising children alone is another ministry. That like Tolu said earlier on, this is something that God has given to, is a ministry that God has committed into our hands.
Yes.
And it comes with a lot of commitment. So my experience, it goes back for the past, let's say 6 years, or let's say 10 years of my career, from my master's to my doctoral program. And in between, I got married, and then I have a 2-year-old daughter now. And thinking about how I've been managing everything together, I would say is the grace of God. But most importantly, my marriage and my motherhood is my priority, and I take that seriously more than anything else. But God has actually been faithful. I think one thing that's really, really helped me so much is my husband. Having a husband that is understanding and realize that you have so many things that you have to do at the same time was very, very helpful for me. And another thing is me continually trusting in God for strength, because the Bible says about your own strength, you can't do it. So you need the grace of God to be able to handle everything. And also thinking about it, we can't do it by our own strength. And if you keep giving out and you're not refilling yourself back, you're going to run out. And we can only refill ourselves back with the word of God, with trusting in God, asking God for more grace to do more, and support you in what you're doing currently. So the grace of God, having a good husband as well, has really, really helped me. And also seeking for help, because oftentimes, we always think that we're superwomen and we can do everything all by ourselves. I'm not really shy to ask for help if I need. So I seek help regardless. If I need someone to help me with my lecture, if I need someone to help me to cook, I don't mind. I can do that. If I have too many things I have to do at the same time, I can ask for help. If I need help for someone to help me to look after my daughter while I quickly sort out cooking, or I clearly sort out my lectures, then that would help. So I also seek for help. And another thing that's also helped me over the years is also having a plan. I'm a very structured person, because if I don't go with my structure, I might get everything scattered. So I have a routine. I know what I'm supposed. When I go to bed at night, I think about the things I'm supposed to be doing the following day, and I try to, prioritize them, what I need to do first. Even though sometimes my husband would say, you can leave some till later, but I see what I can do at a particular time based on the routine that I've set up for myself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Modara. That's really interesting. And you're right. Most times we women, we tend to be superpowers. I can juggle this and juggle that. And one of the things I would like to highlight from what you've said is it is okay to ask for help. It's okay to actually acknowledge that, I can't do everything. And that in itself is a form of strength. So I would like our viewers not to forget that helpful nugget from Dr. Modara. I'd just like to point out this fact that we are waiting for Pastor Ukiwe to join us from Nigeria. He's having some connection issues, and we hope to have him with us shortly. And therefore, our viewers at home, don't forget that you can also ask your questions anonymously on Slido. Would like to hear from you as well, and feel free to also pose your questions to any of our speakers. So, Mrs. Fabiye, I would just like to ask that, is there an ideal age to begin communicating with your children? And if yes, what age do you think is ideal? I know that there are so many stages of childhood or being a child, and I can also say that I'm still a child to my parents. But is there an ideal age where you start communicating with your children as parents?
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can, please.
Okay, so there are different stages, like you rightly said, to child development. So you have the newborns, you have the infants, you have the toddlers, you have preschool, you have school age, and then you have adolescents to adults. Now, again, with what research has shown, because there's never really one size fits all, but with what research has shown, the ideal period or stage to actually start communicating is when the child starts to have that cognitive development, where they're able to identify things, they're able to point things out, they're able to remember things. And this usually is around, I think, 18 months to about 3 years old.
Okay.
That's usually the toddler stage. So we don't have to wait till you think they're 6 and they're going into school and you think, oh, now that they can speak, they can articulate themselves properly. So if I go based off what research has shown, and normally this relationship with parents and children, a lot of people have studied it because it raises so much questions, so much concerns that people always want to find out what exactly is it, how can we get it right, if we're getting it wrong, what do we do? So if I go based off research that has been done, usually from that 18 months to about 3 years old is the perfect time to actually start communicating, because this is when the child's brain, the child's different things starts to develop in the mind of the child. They're able to identify things, they're able to remember and point things out. So from there, you can start communicating and imbibing that culture, that behavior, those positive words and encouraging words in their lives.
Yeah, thank you so much. But just to follow up on that, so you said from 18 months, from based on research, but then in practical terms, so how can you communicate with a child of 18 months? How do you start communicating with babies or children at that age?
So you pretty much start engaging them in conversation. So you can see that they're willing to learn certain things. They point certain things out to you. So they could say mommy now, they could say daddy now, they could say table, they could say food, different types of things. So you have to be willing to engage in conversations with them and not just take the one word that they might utter, or if they point at something, it's almost like they're seeking what's the word I'm looking for? They're seeking that engagement now that they're aware about certain things. So take that opportunity to build on that, and you never know, different children learn fast, they learn at different degrees. So if you're able to put in more, than what you would normally have, or depending on what your own experience was as a child or what you saw your younger siblings have, if you're able to do a bit more, you would definitely see that difference, as opposed to if you just left them to do the babbling that they would normally do. So just engaging with them, and you never know, those engagements might cause them to want to learn more, want to know more about things. And then when they get to the stage of preschool, they're somewhat wiser. They know things more than what some other children might know, because they just didn't have that engagement with their parents, either whether just the father, the mother, or both parents at home.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So it's important to keep engaging with them. And I would just like to ask you this question. So how are attachments formed? I know you've talked a bit about that actually, but just again to expand on this, that how do we form attachments between parents and children?
Okay, so normally when you're building a relationship with a child as a parent, it can go either in two ways. So you can either have a secure attachment type of relationship or an insecure attachment. Now, the insecure attachment can go off in three ways. So it could be where someone is just anxious, or someone is avoidant, or someone is disorganized. Now, I'll explain. Insecure type of attachment between a parent and a child, the child knows that they have that security, they have that love, they have that bond with the parents. So if there is a breakaway, so we say the parent has to leave or the child has to leave, they both know that that relationship is secure, so they can always come back to each other. Now, with insecure attachments, these type of relationships, the children don't necessarily like being away from the parents. And if you have noticed as well, or if you know, when a child is very young, so say an infant, and you take that child away from the parents, most of them tend to cry because that's who they know, that's all they know. So they just don't want to be away. So they're still trying to form that bond, that secure attachment with the parents, and don't necessarily want to be away. Now, growing up, you also find that because of the kind of attachment style that children might have had with their parents, it can go into their own relationships, either with their spouse or with their own children, or just, people and community around them in general. And then you find that if there is a sort of breakaway or disengagement, some people can become very anxious. And then when that particular person that they get that love from, say their child, for instance, when you come back, it becomes more like, I don't know if you're going to leave again. I don't know what's really going on with this relationship. And even being resistant as well, which is the other part of the other stage or the other style of the insecure attachment. When that person detaches from you, when they come back, you're resisting that love and that warmth that they are bringing to you just because you didn't understand why they had to detach from you.
Yes.
And then there is the final part of the insecure, which is disorganized. Now, this is where all the child has known growing up is mood swings. So you have parents that are 100% stressed all the time. And as a child, you don't understand what's going on. So you grow up, especially even children that have probably had to go into, they've pretty much left home and had to go into other homes, things like that. So they've experienced different kinds of behaviors, different kinds of attitudes. And that way they grow up being disorganized, in quotes, not just in the actual functionality of things, but just disorganized in the sense of forming relationships with people, because you're not sure what this person is going to do next. You're not sure what the other person. So they have they struggle to form relationships and hold on to relationships with people. And that can happen if that's what a child has experienced growing up.
Exactly.
That can happen. That can also reflect in how they how they build that relationship with their own children, because it's what they've known. It's the only thing they've known. And like I said earlier, if you're able to identify that this is what it is and it's not what you want to continue, then you have to rewrite the story. So these attachment styles are extremely important. And this is research that has actually been done by John Bowlby so many years ago. And it's very important that we know that children pick up on these things, even from when they are very little, and it can go a very long way in affecting how they also behave in the society.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Fabiye. And we have Pastor Ukiwe now with us, who has joined us. Pastor Ukiwe, can you hear me? Yes. So just to get your thoughts, we are talking about parents and parent-children relationship in marriage, in a Christian marriage or Christian family. Just to ask you from your own perspective, why is parent-child relationship important?
Thank you so much for having me on this platform. God bless you. Parent-child relationship is important. One, because that's what God says. Psalm 127, it says, children are the heritage of God, but the fruit of the womb is a reward. In other words, children come from God, and it is a reward for the parents. So you see, children are important because God ordained it so. Now, after God created man and the woman, the first blessings he gave to them was that they should, multiply, they should be fruitful, and to multiply, which means to produce after its own kind. So it becomes, inevitable and expectant that every parent, by God's standard, should be able, to have children. So children are part of the family that God created, even will. Before it is man's will, it is God's will. God commanded it, and it is supposed to be. So we're supposed to have children in our family and to love children.
Yes.
in the family.
Thank you so much, Sabi. That's actually the same thing that Dr. Modara and Mrs. Fabi have actually said before you joined us. So it's good to know that we are all in agreement about the value and the importance of parent-child relationship. While I've still got you, sir, Pastor Okiwe, I'd just like to ask you a question. So is friendship with your children ideal? Would you say that it's ideal to be friends with your children as a parent?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Unless that you are friendly with anyone apart from children, you don't get the best out of them. The opposite of a friend is an enemy. So if you're not a friend of your child, then you are the opposite, which is an enemy, which is an opposer. And so psychologists and even in normal homes, traditional homes, you discover that when you're a friend with your child, the chances are that the child will be free with you, will be able to tell you everything that she would not tell other people. In church, I have some teenagers that are very friendly with me. They tell me things that they don't even tell their parents. They say, don't tell my parents, but they tell me, and I find a way, of communicating this, to their parents in a way that they will be able to help. So to be friends, yes, it's absolutely expedient.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Modara, just following up from what Pastor Kibe have just said about, it is important to be friends with your children. And he mentioned something that in his church, he's got some teenagers who open up to him and they don't open up to their parents. Why do you think that some children are not free to open up to their parents? Why are they not free to talk to their parents about certain things?
Oh, thank you. If I may start by saying that, I said earlier on that friendship it should be reciprocal.
Yeah.
But the level of friendship should also be defined. Now, this is my opinion. The level of friendship should be defined at each level. So the way I will be a friend to a 2-year-old would not be the same way I will be a friend to an 18-year-old or a 30 years old who is already, an adult. Because the understanding of ideas and beliefs and understanding of life to them is not going to be the same thing. So the level of my friendship to my baby, for example, would be more like a non-verbal. So it would come with more of action that she can then imitate and become part of. To a 30 years old or 18 years old would my requirement to be a bit more vocal, taken them out, spending more time with them.
Yeah.
So the level of friendship, it depends on the age. I would like to start off with that. Now, going back to your question of, sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, so the question is why are some children not free to open up to their parents?
Exactly. So if I go back to the point I made earlier on, some of the reasons why children tend not to be open to us as parents is because of sometimes it could be as a result of our expectation. Okay, so like I said earlier on, the way I communicate with a 2-year-old, if I'm expecting the same response with someone that is 18 or 20 years old, 30 years old, they wouldn't want to talk to me because they believe that I wouldn't understand them.
Yeah.
Because I'm treating all of them at the same level. So it is important that we understand that the expectation at different level is different, and what a teenager would expect from me might be higher than what a 10-year-old would expect.
Yes.
So, and if I don't meet up with that expectation, they would run away. They wouldn't want to talk to me because they believe I probably wouldn't even understand them. And I think another thing that we do as parents, and I'm still working, like I said, I have a 2-year-old daughter, which I'm still working on myself, is that sometimes we tend to talk too much and we don't listen. And we don't listen to them. And sometimes because of their development, sometimes they talk and all they're expecting us to do is just to listen and just understand them, what they meant by those words or what they meant by those actions. So that's another key thing. That's another reason why teenagers or children or our children don't talk to us, is because we talk too much.
Yes.
And we give them less time to talk. For us to listen back to them. And also, another thing is, we tend to be judgmental sometimes. I wouldn't really say that has to do a lot with the society that we live in and our culture or our belief. But I think always being judgmental again as well might also make our children not to want to talk to us. They might end up talking to friends, they might end up talking to someone, like what Tolu identified earlier on. In terms of attachment, we have secured and insecure. If they don't feel secured with you, if they don't feel protected, if they don't feel safe, they wouldn't open up to you. They would rather go to someone that they have that attachment with.
Yeah.
They'd rather talk to someone that they feel more confident that this person will understand. And like what Pastor Okawe said earlier on, that there are teenagers that will come to him and talk to me about things that naturally they haven't even spoken to their parents about it. But they feel that attachment with Pastor, and they felt Pastor will understand what I'm trying to say. I'd rather just talk to him. And it's because of that bond.
Thank you so much, Dr. Modava. And that's really important, it's the expectations. And I really like the way you kind of differentiated between the levels of friendship and how we should target it to, make it age appropriate more or less. I think that's really, really important. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mrs. Fabiye, sorry, just to come back to you again with more questions about friendship. I think we'll focus a bit more on friendship with children now. So in practical terms, how do you cultivate friendship with your children without infringing on their personal space? We know that in this generation, people are so protective. Even children of 5 years old already have a personal space, and they want us as parents to respect that space. And you wonder that, what do you need your space for? But if we are talking about cultivating friendship with children, how do we do that without stepping, going out of that boundaries on infringing on their own personal space?
Thank you. So I think I would just build. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I will just build up on what Dr. Madara has actually said, which interestingly enough is actually my take on it as well. Now, with friendship, there definitely needs to be a balance, and I think this works well when you understand the type of parenting style that you have as a parent to your child. Now, there are different styles. So if you have the very authoritative or the authoritarian type, like the sergeant, the drill sergeant, if you have that kind of style in your home, then definitely the child will not even be interested in wanting to be a friend. And neither would that parent be interested in wanting to be a friend.
Yeah.
And you also have the very permissive type of style where anything goes and they don't really expect much from you. Those type of parents and that kind of style, you're more inclined to want to be friends with your children, and you don't necessarily, even respect space or anything like that. But now, if you have an authoritative style, which gives you a balance between the permissive and the authoritarian one, you will understand that building that friendship, like Dr. Madara said, there is a line. You have to define what the friendship is. Now, with friendship that we know normally, nobody is in charge. No one tells the other person, this is what you must do, I'm the one above you or anything. But in a parent-child relationship, there needs to be standards, there needs to be limits. So understanding that you are that caretaker, like we mentioned earlier, you're the one in charge, you're the one with that authority and responsibility over this child, to foster that kind and cultivate that kind of friendship that will not allow you to sort of, cross your boundary, if you want to say, or go into their own space. It's important that you start early. Now, you start early by being available. Make them aware that as much as you want to be close to them, you also want them to understand certain boundaries, certain limits, responsibility, things like that. So be available, communicate. Now, when you communicate, like Dr. Madara said, you don't just talk. Sometimes a lot of young children, they just need people to listen to them. And then when you listen, when you're available, when you listen, you intentionally show that I am here to actually hear what you need to say. I'm here to understand where you're coming from, because your life as a teenager or as a young child or as a young adult is going to be very different from my life as a parent.
Yeah.
So I might not necessarily know what's going on in your circle, in your life, but I want to understand. I want to know what it is that you're going through and see how I can help. So being in that particular position gives that child a bit of, makes that child sort of relax to say, okay, my parents are interested, let me open up to them. But if you come up with that guard of what I say is what it is, whatever I say goes, nobody questions anything, nobody asks for any explanation, nobody asks for any reason. It's almost like, well, we must be doing a sort of drill army sergeant relationship in this home, you get. And this kind of drives children to want to go out to seek that advice or open up to other people. So again, be available, set boundaries, let them know these boundaries are healthy, for that child and for yourself, even as a parent. And I think it's also important for parents to understand that one of the goals of adolescence is really for the child to develop what is called individuation in psychology, which is a continuous process of that child as an individual trying to find their own identity, trying to seek themselves individually. And it's definitely a healthy process for that child. So it's something that should be encouraged. So if you see yourself as a friend to your child, there are definitely boundaries. You're a friend, but you're an authority. You're that responsibility over the child. So you definitely need to encourage that aspect of their lives. Because if you don't, when it's time for them to step out to the world, it's going to be difficult for them to be able to integrate and for them to be able to socialize the way they should have, because you didn't encourage them to find their own identity. You didn't encourage them to seek certain things for themselves, so they know how to handle situations, handle problems, when they get out to the world. So friendship is important, but that boundary is there, and there's so many practical ways to do it. Like I said, start early, engage and be intentional, be available in really wanting to find out what it is with them. Because to be honest with you, it really isn't just about being physically present, in quotes. There are lots of things you can do while you are physically present. Because in so many homes, I'm sure you would have heard that the parents are providing the money, the children have that, there's enough of it, that's not in question. And then they're at home. So the father can be in the same living space as that child, but there is no sort of relationship between the two of them. But then you hear, but I've always been available, I've always been present, I've always been here. You really haven't. So there's a lot of emotion as well that a lot of parents fail to contribute into the lives of their children, which we need to be able to bond and get closer to each other. So not just being physically present, but intentionally and mindfully being available to know what it is that is going on with them.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Fabi. That's really powerful. No, not just being physically present, but being engaged. And I think that goes back to what you said earlier on about engaging with them and listening. I mean, you also talk about listening as Dr. Modera did. I think listening is a more difficult art than speaking. We are quick to voice our opinions. We want to be heard, but sometimes just to shut up and listen to them as well, make them understand that their own opinion counts. Just to remind our viewers at home that if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on Slido. Remember that you can post your questions anonymously as well. And Pastor Ukiwe, I would like to pick up on something you said earlier on about teenagers in your church coming to talk to you about things that they won't ask their parents about. So from your own experience with those teenagers, why do you think they're able to come to you? What makes it easy for them to speak to you about things they will not speak to their parents? How do you cultivate their friendship with them?
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, because the voice has gone down on my own side, so I was just wondering if you can hear me. Now, you see, we talked about friendship. I appreciate the fact that, the kind of friendship that you have with a 2-year-old is not the same as you exhibit with a 20-year-old. I appreciate that. But friendship here is, you're talking about trust. When you're someone's friend, they will trust you. And when there is trust, they can put anything, in your laps. You understand what I'm saying? For parents, there are certain things that are expectations of parents that can endear them, to their children and to earn their trust. I'll just read out, these things, without the scriptures. Each of them have scriptures, but I don't want to bore us. It's not a church, but I don't want to bore us with scriptures. But all of it has scriptural background. The first thing that make people come to you, is love. Love. Okay? The second thing is, that you are expected as a parent to give to your children that will make them, believe in you also, is that you must, have periods where you command them on what to do. It depends, on what age now. The Bible says that God says, I trust Abraham because he commanded his children, to do the things of the Lord. So you must come to a point where your children know, when you're exercising a command as a means of love, you're doing it because of love. The third thing is instruct. You must instruct your children. Proverbs 1:8, instruct your children. It will bring trust when they know that, you're telling them these things for their own good. Number 4, you must guide and warn them. Guide and warn the children. If you guide them, they know that, yes, you're telling them what to do and what not to do. You get that 1 Thessalonians 2:11. Restrain them. Restrain. You must learn to restrain your children from doing what's wrong. If you don't, you will lose their respect. You lose their trust. They'll just know that, look, this man, it doesn't matter. Look at the case of David. David, because of his attitude, lackadaisical attitude, he's a very good leader. He's a very good king, but he was very weak with his children. Amnon raped the half-sister. He didn't do anything. Absalom killed Amnon because of it. He didn't do anything. The man ran away, came back, he accepted it. So it's like, let's not talk to him. This is the kind of a person that he is, So you must be in a position to restrain your children, when they're doing anything that is wrong. Eli's children went bad because God says that he did not warn them. So there's a place, for warning and for restraining your children from doing what was. Number 6, you should be able to know when to punish. It's there in the scriptures, Deuteronomy 21:18-21. There's a place to punish the children when they do what's wrong. I mean, punishment must be commensurate with the offense. You don't take a sledgehammer because, somebody's done whatever. It must be commensurate. So that they don't think that you are wicked or that you hate them. Okay? There is a place for chastening. To chasten is different from the punishment. Hebrews 12:7. There is a place you have to learn to nourish your children. Give them what their soul, their body requires. When you give them what they need at appropriate time, they will trust you, they will love you, they will want to do anything for you, even when you are chastening them. So nourishing your children, Isaiah chapter 1:2, and then supplying the needs of the children. Supplying the needs of the children. Matthew 7:8-11. What they need depending on what age that they are. But you are giving them what they need according to their age. If they're children, you give them children things, buy them toys, you're surprised. 2-year-old, when they see their parents, they run towards them because they know that, they will bring them stuff, the wicked ones, they'll run away from. So you must supply their needs. And number 10, which is the last one here, is do not provoke them. If you learn to provoke your children all the time, they will run away from you. They will not tell you anything. Even if they are dying, they will not say it to you. Ephesians chapter 6:4. Do not provoke your children. I think these are things that are responsibilities of parents that will endear their children to them rather than take them away to somebody else to seek confidence, to seek comfort with either pastor or peers or whatever that may even mislead them,
Thank
Praise
you so
God.
much, Pastor Ukiwe. Thank you for sharing those practical tips. And the issue of trust, it's a very big one. If we're to discuss it today, I'm sure that we won't get over that because that is another big issue for us to discuss. We've got 2 questions from our viewers at home. And one of the questions, so the first one I would direct to you, Dr. Modara, is that how would kids who have lost confidence in discussing with their parents due to past experiences regain such moving on? So I think this is in context of teenagers. So how would teenagers who have lost confidence in discussing with their parents due to past experiences regain such moving on?
I think it depends on the context. In the case where the parents are alive, the two parties have a role to play. So both the teenager and the parent have a role to play in that.
Yeah.
I think the very key thing that we also need to imbibe in our children right from when they're very young is the heart of forgiveness. It is very key, because even if the parents are willing to communicate, if they're willing to build that bond, and the teenager is not responding, still feel hurt, that there will be issue. No matter what the parents are doing, the father will still, and it will just go on like that for so many years. So I think it's very key that right from, no matter how young they are, we should need to learn to teach them how to forgive. And parents, if we fail, we shouldn't kill ourselves. We are humans. Things happen, but it's about, Tolu said something earlier, it's about that self-realization of what you have done and try to make amendments. What do you need to do? Recognizing the child again. What is it that you've gotten wrong? How else can you make it right? Be interested. Make them feel more, you feel that you're more interested in what they're doing now. That's a way that you can help them, that you can help the teenager. So for example, if I would like to share an example. So if maybe you wanted your child to be a doctor or something, and just at the age of 14 years old, you realize that he's not even going to school, he doesn't want to go to school. And because of that, you lost interest, and then you created that disconnection between the both of you. Okay, the child might feel hurt that a parent or his parents are not supporting him, and that can go for long years. Now, how do you bring that back together? You just need to be interested in what they're doing. So if your child wants to play ball, you need to learn how to play ball, or you need to, if you want to be available, that okay, whenever you're going for your practice, I'm available next week. I'm happy to take you to your practice for the next 1 month. You need to show interest in what they do. And that's another way of bringing them back, and making them feel, oh, okay, yeah, I think mommy is getting to understand that this is what I really love to do.
Yeah.
But if you're not interested in what they do, that disconnection will still be there. So I think that's one thing. That's another way that we can, break that, build that bond back again, being interested in what they do and just show them love. I think that's very clear. That's the two main points that I would say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thanks so much, Dr. Modaval. So, you've really shared a very interesting perspective, and that's from a parent's perspective. But let's flip it to the other side. So, from the teenager's perspective, then, how can you encourage such teenagers to get the confidence to go back to such parents to start engaging them in conversations or communicating with them if they've had bad experiences with them in the past? So the parents can make efforts on their own part, but how can the teenager himself or herself build that confidence to then open up to such parents again? Dr. Madara, yes, you're mute.
Okay, all right. I think, and for the teenager, what programs like this, encouraging our teenagers to listen to programs like this will go a long way as well to help them. Buying books for them, organizing, teenage development learning program for them as well can also help. For a teenager, it's actually really difficult for you to, if that thing has not been embedded in them right from the beginning, it's actually this is maybe realistic, and I'm sure it's medically proven. It's quite difficult for you at the age of 16 or 14 or 15 or 18. You're trying to change them overnight is not going to work.
Yeah.
You have to start as pastors, and that's why it's also important that we know the friends of our children. We know the kind of people that they work with. Encourage them to associate with the good people that would help them also to get to that level. It's quite hard because they've got to a level where they can make decisions on their own, regardless of whatever you told them. But we can only do our part as parents, we can only do our part as friends, and just putting things in place that we know that would help them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Modava. Mrs. Fabier, I would like to ask you this question. So it's again related to teenagers. And as I guess as Dr. Modava said, that age is very, very critical for children. So teenagers and their youth crime. This is a question from one of our viewers at home. And the question is, do you think parents failed them? So do you think parents failed teenagers who are engaged or involved in youth crime? Mrs. Fabier.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you for that question. This is very interesting. I mean, I would want to say no, because parenting, especially teenagers, is never an easy feat. Now, I mean, again, not one size fits all, but there are certain situations where you can clearly point out that the parents might have failed the child in one way or the other. It definitely takes two. It's never just one person, right? But at the end of the day, you as an individual, so whether the teenager or whether the parent, we all have our parts to play. So because your parents, because the parents are probably not available or the parents were not as present as should have been, doesn't necessarily give you the liberty to go off to the divine lifestyle. But then there's certain factors, so many things that can influence such behavior. But I think it's important for us to mention that nobody's perfect. We're all working in progress. So there's so many things that are new to us. And once that happens, we have to walk our way through it. So becoming a parent, I mean, it's the first time for you. There's so many things you have to learn on the spot. You might make mistakes and then you have to rewrite your wrongs and things like that. There's so many parents, that have children that have fallen into crime. There's so many parents that have children that are doing time currently. So many parents that actually feel like they've let themselves down. They've failed their children. But I've also met a particular parent who said to me that she knows that she did everything possible to make sure that her son didn't go the way that he did. But unfortunately, once you become a teenager, there's so many things that just get involved. And especially for single parents, talk less, not even like a double parent, a single parent household, it can be so difficult to want to keep up to date and keep abreast with so many things that happens in that child's life. Now, one thing I would say is as a Christian, it's important that you just continue to pray for that child, because you can't know everything, but God can help you. The Holy Spirit can help you. Now, the particular scripture I like to always make reference to is Proverbs 22, verse 6. It says, train up a child in the way that he should go, so that when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, what you find is that a lot of parents want their children to sort of take a particular path in life, as opposed to the one that maybe the child is interested in taking. So what I would advise is go to the place of prayer as a parent and ask God, this child that you have given to me, as we clearly identified in the beginning, that this child is a gift from God. This child is God's gift to me to take care of. Now, what do I do, Lord? What path should this child take? If I know as a parent the path that God wants this child to take, then I will do everything within my power to make sure that this child is walking in the path that God wants him to go into. But if you don't even know what God would want this child to do, if you don't even know the role that you're meant to play in the life of that child, you would, sometimes subconsciously want to make that child do something that should not even be in their path. And the child might be telling you, this is what I want to do. So you as a parent, go to the place of prayer and ask God, will this glorify your name? Is this what you want my child to do? How can I be of help? How can I, carry myself along with this child? But by the time parents start telling their children, you will not do this, not in my house, not under my roof, not with my money. By the time you start saying those type of things, teenagers, it is very difficult. They tend to want to, just flip and decide that, what, if you won't cater to my needs, if you won't pay attention to what I'm interested in, I would go ahead and find the way myself. And unfortunately, in trying to find that way themselves, they get into peer pressure. They get into, even advice that they didn't solicit for, you get it outside, unfortunately, you know, and this is how they fall into wrong hands. And parents begin to question themselves and say, have I failed? Have I not failed? I mean, unfortunately, it is the reality that we face, especially now with crime, you know, rates very high amongst young people. There's so many things that can be done, but I would definitely emphasize that if you are a Christian parent, standing in that place of prayer for your child cannot be overemphasized, because there's so many things that you may not be able to see. Your hand may not be able to touch, but you see that place of prayer can take your child out of the midst of trouble. And when you realize it, eventually you will be so thankful that God led you in that way. But if you're not even interested in the first place of seeking God's face concerning that child's life, things may just go wrong. Again, it's not one size fits all. It's, you know, a lot easier said than done. But I believe that the Holy Spirit can be that guide to help us not to feel like we have failed. You know, I mean, when you look back at your own family as well, do you, depending on how, you know, you've turned out, do you think you should have turned out better than what you are currently now? Do you think your parents have failed? You know, I personally don't think that. I may not have gone down the crime route, but I don't think my parents have failed. I think they've done the best that they could have. Perhaps they could have done more, but this is what they had the capacity to do. And I'm so grateful for it. So that way, when we become parents as well, we have to be conscious of that. What do I need to do? But also be aware that once a child gets to, you know, that adolescent stage, they tend to, psychologically, they start becoming their own person. And so many things that we are exposed to now, the internet, so many things can influence, you know, a young person's behavior. So we just have to, you know, pay attention and also be prayerful.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fabi. I mean, you've said a lot, and I would just like to emphasize the place of prayer. We can't talk about prayer enough and how important it is for our children. Pastor Okiwe, I would just ask you a slightly related question to that about teenagers. You know, we've talked, I think, the question from our viewer related to youth crime. But from your own opinion, what are the other common teenage problems that parents face with their teenagers, and how can they manage this?
Thank you. Generally, we are assuming that the action of the child is as a result of what he picked outside. We are assuming that he's behaving badly because of some, you know, endogenous issues. Well, it is possible that what he's doing is a reaction. It's possible that he's rebelling against something. Science says action and reaction are equal and opposite. And unless that the science says that everybody wants to, you know, maintain his status quo, unless there is a force that stops it. So if the action is a reaction to what the dad has done, to solve his problem, the dad has to stop what he's doing. If he doesn't stop it, you're not likely to get the guy to stop. He won't stop. You see, so that's another way to look at it. I understand the fact that you peer pressure here, you know, a teenager trying to discover himself and think, I understand that. The hormonal issues, I understand that. But if his behavior is because of a reaction, he's reacting. What could he be reacting to? The parents, we're talking about parents here now. A parent is supposed to be a parent. Parents are supposed to meet the physical needs and being available for their children. If the man is not meeting the needs, you're not paying his school fees, you're not giving him food money, the guy is reacting, you are praying. What are you praying? The Bible says we cannot remain in sin and expect, you know, grace to abound. He said, God forbid. So if a father is not providing for this child and is not available for him, he's more busy out there, then you must expect a reaction. We have said that the parent should also be a friend. Who is a friend? A friend that accepts the child for who he is from God, first and foremost. You know, and if a parent that respects the child, respect is reciprocal. It's not just the child respecting the parent. The parent also has a place to respect the children. A parent that is appreciative You do a small thing, oh, thank you. Oh, that's good job. Thank you. Appreciating will make him do more.
Yes,
A parent that encourages the child. You encourage when he does something good, you encourage him. Oh, you know how to draw. Oh, that's good. Keep on. If you do that, that will be the bonding will be stronger. A parent is supposed to be a trainer who tells him what to do and shows him how to do it. You are leading by example. Not that you're just saying, hey, be a good guy, you don't smoke, but you yourself, you're not doing it. So you must be a parent who's a trainer, a coach. Like we call our Daddy Gio, he's a coach. So we look up to him, we do the things that he does because, all these bears that people are wearing these days because of they just want to, when you don't see me wearing, the Gio does not wear bear, like you don't see any of the AGOs wear. Where are you getting your own bears from? Look, I know it's not a sin. I know. I'm just saying that people, you learn from what your parents do.
Yes.
When you're grown up and you live on your own, you have your wife or whatever. If you grow beards, I'll just laugh at you as but you didn't used to do this now, just in a subtle way. So a parent is also, apart from being a trainer, is supposed to be a priest. A priest who teaches his child the way of the Lord and represents him before God through effective intercession from childhood, not when he becomes a teenager and he becomes inquisitive. If every morning you wake him up at 3 years old, 4 years old, my children, they wake up in the morning and knock at their door, come to the morning devotion. They come to morning devotion. We'll sing praise. You sing today. You sing tomorrow. You lead opening prayer today. You lead opening prayer tomorrow. I give the message. Next time, mommy, you give the message. They hear different perspective. Every morning until they are 14. They're not likely to go away from it easily. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the chances are slimmer that they would do it. So making our children change could be we ourselves changing.
Yes.
But if it becomes a bit difficult, then we may need to bring in counselors like these wonderful people here who are trained in the art of counseling. If you need a psychologist, you get a psychologist to help them. All is just to help them. But we must first of all do our own part before that God will do his own part, or the child will also do his own part. Praise God.
Thank you so much, Pastor Kiwe. And I really like I like your practical examples and, talking about as parents, being a coach, being a priest. There is this saying that do as I do. So not just do as I say, but also let our lives be reflective of what we're asking them to do. And I pray that God will help all our parents, and I hope that the upcoming parents are not scared that parenthood is a difficult journey, and with God all things are possible. And in relation to that, actually, Dr. Modara, I will ask you this question because you've mentioned that you have a 2-year-old. So there's a question from our viewer that is asking that, how is life before kids as a young couple, and how would you say it has changed?
Say that again, please.
So the question is, how is life before kids as a young couple, and how would you say that it has changed?
Life before kids, interesting. Life after kids, interesting.
Well, that is a very broad response. Are there any practical changes?
I don't think it's gotten better. I think it's more responsibility. It's more tax for me. Oftentimes, when I was still in school, when I was not married, I only probably my campus wasn't too far from my accommodation. So I can still wake up 30 minutes before class and still meet up with my class. When I got married, I realized I have to wake up a bit earlier if my husband have to go to work, so I have to cook. Now, since I have a baby, is more responsibility. I have to wake up a lot earlier to get her ready. So I work in London. I live in Nottingham, which is far away. So oftentimes, for example, I have to wake up like 4 a.m., get myself ready, get her ready, make sure everything is ready for everybody. And I probably went to bed like 1 a.m. because I've only had just 3 hours sleep, or sometimes maybe 1 hour sleep, and I'm ready for the day. So I wouldn't want to tell everyone that, oh, it's going to be easy. No, if you're expecting me to say that, no, it's not going to be easy. It's not commitment, it's not responsibility. But the grace of God, as always, like I said at the beginning, the grace of God, when I look back, when I reflect, it's been the grace of God. Sometimes when I look at myself, like, Damn, where are you getting the strength from?
Yeah.
But it's God. It's been God all the way. You know, you're not thinking about, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I have a job, and I'm a worker in God's house as well. So you have so many, and I'm a daughter to a family, to two families, my in-law and my parents. You know, so the responsibility is still there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't reduce, it would increase, but we can only but ask God for more grace to be able to manage them all together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Omodara. And then we've got another question, which, well, this is interesting. And if possible, I know that we are running a bit out of time, but I would like everyone to actually be able to answer this question. So since I've still got Dr. Omodara, the question is, should my mom be looking at my phone? Don't I deserve to have my privacy? That's the question. So in just 2 minutes, how would you like to respond to that?
Should my mom be looking at my phone?
Don't I deserve some privacy? Yes.
Now, it depends on the age. It depends on the level of your relationship with your mother. My mom is allowed to look at my phone at this stage. There's nothing I'm hiding. But when I was in my undergrad, this is me being sincere with you, and I was in my year 1 or year 2, and if my mom is looking at my phone at that point, I was like, no, Mom, what are you looking at? You know, I would try and put a pin that she's not going to be able to remember, you know. It doesn't mean that we still don't have that relationship then. But Tolu said something earlier on about respecting their space as well. Sometimes we just want their space. And it's important that we respect that. If you want them to be our friend, we need to respect their space. Without you even asking them, they will be the one to tell you. Oh, Mom, have you seen this? Oh, Mom, I need to tell you this. But it's because that relationship to talk, that relationship to communicate, that connection is there. So you don't even have to ask for their phone before they show you. If you have that good relationship and a healthy relationship with them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Modara. And Pastor Kiwe, I don't want to preempt your response, but earlier you talked about the issue of trust. And I think that goes back again to trust. You know, if you trust someone, you are not snooping around trying to find out what they are hiding or not telling you. But I would like you to respond, Pastor Kiwe, to that question, that should my mom be looking at my phone? Don't I deserve to have my privacy? What's your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. You know, I said earlier on that if you are a parent and you are a friend to your child, you must, first of all, accept who they are. You must also respect them. You know, why would she want to look at the phone? Unless there is no trust. If he knows that you're a bad person, you're working with bad people, he doesn't want you to get into trouble, and she will be interested in, you know, looking at what's going on there. Who is calling you again? But if there is trust ab initio, even if the phone is ringing, he doesn't even want to look at it. There is trust. And then there's respect also. That, look, I respect that it is your phone, you know, so what's the point? You know, that's the way I see it. But if there is no trust, and you have not behaved yourself in a way that your parent can trust you, if you get into trouble, I get into trouble too. If the police comes to the house, for instance, because somebody named you, you know, with something that was bad, I'm going to be involved. So that's it. You must respect your children. That's important. You must accept them for who they are. That's important. But if there is no trust, men, I need to take care of you and for me while you're still under my watch.
Yes. Thank you so much, Pastor Kiwe. Mrs. Fabeye, your response to that, please.
Thank you. I particularly like the fact that we're not, from what I gather now, we're not saying never check your child's phone. I like that we're not saying that, because the truth is, I share the same view. Trust is so important that once you trust the child, like Pastor Okiwe has already said, things will just come freely. But peradventure, that trust is not there, or somehow it's broken, and you have that leading to check just to fulfill all righteousness, to do your own due diligence. Because if that child gets in trouble, the parent gets in trouble. And you don't want a situation whereby something then happens, and then you look back and tell yourself as a parent, I should have checked. I should have done more. I could have done this. I could have. Now you speak in the past when you could have taken that liberty, you could have taken that extra step just to be cautious, just to prevent certain things. And this is why I also mentioned earlier that as a parent, as a Christian parent, if you are in tune with God about your child's life, there are certain things that you're not aware of that even though you think that you're aware, you think that, oh, things are going fine. I know my child's friends. I know that my child will not do this. Nobody will say this about my child. You never truly know everything. No matter how close you are to the child, you may not truly know everything. So yes, respect their space, trust them, because then again, you've been living. I want to believe that you have been showing good example as the parents. So they have been learning from you. They know what is right and what is wrong. So you have that trust. You want to believe that I have trained this child up well, to the extent that if they say that my child did this outside, I will say never. You understand? That cannot happen. It cannot be my child, because I know what I have done. I have done my duty. But when you're in a position where you're not even sure if you're getting this right or wrong, you are neither in nor out. So of course you will be unsure about so many things. If they say your child stole something in the shop, you would definitely believe it and come back home and be like, open your bag, I need to see that. They say you stole something, you know? But once you have that trust and that love and that closeness in place, I think it already helps you to believe that your child is who you believe your child is. But again, if there are certain things that are propelling you to think otherwise, it's only wisdom that you take the necessary precaution. It's only wisdom that you do what is needed, because when you look back tomorrow to say I should have, it will be too late. And who knows, if you take that lead in to check, just to be able to give that small correction, or to guide that child in the right direction, to say, no, this advice you're getting from this person, it's not like this, or this thing you're doing, let me just counsel you. But then, if you don't have that already existing relationship with the child can take it in a different way, like, why are you even bothered? You understand? So if I'm checking, it's because there is a reason. And being able to communicate that reason with you, for us to be able to understand each other, is also very vital. Because one, okay, I don't check as a parent, but now I feel that leading, I've checked. How do we communicate what has happened? So that tomorrow, I may not even have to check again. You will be the one coming to me to say, this is the situation, what do I do? But then if it becomes a thing of you check and then you scold, you criticize, you're strict, and every, that child will do a lot more that you can even think or imagine. So it's important that even when you're communicating why you're doing what you're doing, that child understands what you're doing and why you're doing it, so that tomorrow, they may not repeat that same thing again. Like Pastor Okiwe even mentioned, it's not that this is the norm. Like, things do happen. There are exceptions, out of what we might consider the norm. You might take the very loving and warm approach, and tomorrow the child might even do something greater than what you ever even imagined. But in the first instance, yes, creating that environment for trust, that environment for closeness, so that even if you just feel like, oh, you just picked up the phone and you saw something, you have that freedom to be able to discuss that thing with that child. Not that you see it and then you can't sleep at night. You're now worried. You say, hey, what has my child gotten into? Oh my God, what do I do? How do I do this? Things like that, which is not even healthy for the relationship between that child and the parents.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Fabiyi. Another question from our viewers, and I will direct this question to you, Pastor Okiwe, because I believe it's a man speaking here. So the question is, my father's behavior outside the house is different compared to when he's at home. I am confused. Is this how being adult is?
Thank you. The father's behavior outside is different from his behavior inside.
Yes.
You can see that is a basis for, of conflict. It's a basis for conflict. You are even confusing this child. That's not a good father, and that's not a good, a good way, to bring up a child. You are supposed to teach the child the way to go, so that when he grows up, he will not depart from it. But that's not what this man is doing. So if this guy, this young person, becomes, reactive, rebellious, you can't blame him. You can't blame him. And there are fathers like that.
Yeah.
They are nice inside, but they are very, very bad outside. You should lead by example. You should lead by example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Pastor Kiwe. But in terms of this question, so I'm guessing it's a teenager who is...
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm guessing that it's a teenager...
You want me to say what the boy should do?
Can you hear me, Pastor Kiwe?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I was saying that I believe it's a teenager who is asked this question. So the teenager is actually saying that he's confused. Is this how being an adult is? So what practical advice can we give to such person? Like you rightly said, that there are some parents like that, and we can't change that. But for this teenager, what advice can we give in terms of being, changing that opinion about what adulthood is?
Okay, I think first and foremost, he should discuss with the mom, if the mother is in the house, if they're still together, the mom will be able to advise him, tell him that, look, sometimes things happen like that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that every adult is like that, and that you don't have to be like that because you're a child of God. The mom can discuss, give some palliative, and you can discuss with his pastor also, and the pastor will be able to, lead him from the scriptures, how some people find themselves in a very, bad situation, but they were able to make the best of the bad situation. And you have that in the scriptures also. But they can also see a counselor, who will also, counsel him, how to go about it in such a way that he does not get degenerated.
Yes.
If for instance, if I had an issue like that, I'm going to be asking some questions from the child, the siblings of his father. Is there any of them that's behaving like that? The parent of the father. Did he behave like this? Does he know if he behaved like this? I'm trying to see, because certain things are spiritual.
Yeah.
You can't rule that out. Psalm 11:3 says, if the foundation be destroyed, what will the righteous do? So you can begin to probe into the spiritual aspect of this and see whether you need to pray deliverance for him so that he himself does not grow into doing the same thing. So I would also look at that option of praying deliverance for this person if I have found out that there are foundational issues.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pastor Kiwe. Dr. Modava, Mrs. Fabi, I wonder if you have any additional thoughts to share on this question in terms of advising this viewer. So if you have any different opinions to share. Dr. Modava first, please.
I think what I would just say is also depending on the age of the teenager, if I'm to speak to that teenager, now we're not really clear on the context of that question.
Yeah.
It might be that the dad is very good at home, but to outsiders is just something else. But it might be that it shows people from outside that, oh, he's a good man, but maybe at home he's abusing the children or abusing the wife, and the children are, seeing that. So it could be in both ways.
Yeah.
But for that teenager, what I would say is, the first thing is for the teenager to even open up to you. They're obviously seeing you as someone that they can confide in. So it's important that you guide them, you provide them the tools, everything that would help them, in that situation, so that situation doesn't impact on them negatively. I understand what Pastor Kawi said earlier about spiritual and the spiritual part of it, praying for them, but also it's about making them know that they can talk about it. They can still, you're not being disrespectful, but you can talk to your dad about it. You can talk to your father. You can communicate to your parent about it. I'm confused. You can talk to them because they might not even understand that that's what they're doing. So the child, I personally, I would encourage the child, okay, depending on the age, to speak to the parent, either the mom or the father, because they might not even understand that what they're doing is wrong, or maybe the child are even seeing what they're doing. They might not realize it. It's possible. But then when you speak out, they probably will understand better that, I didn't even know that was what was going on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Modava. Mrs. Fabiyi, do you have any other things to add to the question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I share the same, excuse me, I share the same thoughts as well. But interestingly, I would have, naturally just said, depending on the age of the child, go ahead and speak to your father. But of course, before you do, get that advice. So either from your mother, from your pastor, or a counselor. So this is what is going on. How do I approach this? Because I believe so much in the power of communication. This is what I have perceived. This is what I see as a child. Now, can I go in front of my father and discuss this? Because like Dr. Omidara rightly said, he probably has no clue that he's sending mixed signals. He has no clue that the example he is setting, he's messing up with the minds of these children. He has no understanding, which is probably why that is happening. But on the other hand, you find that it is not exactly easy or convenient for a teenager to have this kind of conversation with a parent. So what they do is bottle it up. When they are much older, when the damage has already been done, then some of them, in fact, I dare to say very few, can come back to say, if their parents are even still alive by then, come back to say, this is what happened 20-something years ago. And this is the effect it has had on me, my family, my children, and just my relationship with society in general. I never understood why you were doing this. But at this point, it's too late to be healing any kind of wound that is already, inside. So I think if there is another member of that family that is aware, that is seeing what that child is seeing, I think just having that one person present to encourage the child or otherwise to say, this is really not what adulthood is like. This is not how it's supposed to be. You can see this, you're aware. So if you're not in a position as a child to be able to have this conversation with your father, you can choose to be different. This is what the Bible says about parents. This is what the Bible wants us to do as children of God. Because truth be told, there's so many fathers that if you try to have even just the most simplest of conversations with them to ask a question that involves why, it's a problem, because it's almost like you don't need why. What I said is what I said. So of course, that environment doesn't even give the child the liberty to want to say, Daddy, this is what I've noticed, what is going on, of which the child might be asking with so much innocence, because I truly want to learn. I want to understand, because I'm growing up to be a person. I'm growing up to have my own identity. This is my home. This is where I get my first, social exposure. I need to learn how to do stuff. So if I'm not able to communicate with you, to ask you why, to understand certain things, then I'm going to go out to do that. You understand? So it's always important that there's always somebody, so if it's the mother, if it's a relative, that is also seeing this thing, that can also guide the child right. But I would definitely encourage that child not to keep quiet. So take advantage of so many resources available to families, to parents, and to teenagers as well. So he or she can know how to approach that situation appropriately.
Thank you so much. We've got 4 minutes left. We've got a last question. I said last because that's the question we can take last. I will direct this question to you, Dr. Modara, and then you can also share any few final tips you have. So the question is, what is your godly advice to parents who are in the habit of first blaming their kids, so to judgmental parents? And I know you mentioned this earlier on about not being judgmental. So what is your advice to judgmental parents who are in the habit of first blaming their kids before hearing them out?
My advice to parent is always give up time to listen first. Just take a step back and understand from their perspective what they're saying. Because the way the brain tend to work, we respond quickly, especially to things that we don't agree with, or something that we don't, we're not supporting. The way the brain will quickly react to it is that you want to talk that, no, this is wrong, or no, you're not supposed to do it that way. But as parents, and again, it's not something that is natural. We need to pray for it. We need to pray for that grace, that God would help us to listen more. Sometimes it's just good when you just take that step back and just listen, just listen to them and understand, because what you think is wrong is right from a different perspective. Sometimes I say to my students that I might be a teacher to you, but I'm also a learner. So when I'm telling you something, you don't have to agree. It's based on research. It's based on what other people have researched on. So they are facts, but it doesn't make them to be reality. So when I tell you something and you don't agree, you can let me know. Then with that, I'm learning as well that there's so many sides. There's so many things to be considered to make something to be real. So rather than me being judgmental on your action, or maybe I was expecting you to do something and you're not doing it. Maybe I've always wanted to be a doctor, for example, but there wasn't an opportunity. I didn't have the opportunity to be a medical doctor. But then I'm trying to force you to be a doctor, and then you don't want to. I should be able to understand. Just step back and listen that well. She doesn't have to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Let me understand what she would love or what you would love to do, and what are the things I can do to support him or her. So it's good when we listen. It helps a lot. It keeps us away from being judgmental.
Thank you so much.
Taking a step back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Modara. Pastor Ukiwe, any final words you'd like to share with us, and if you just have any godly advice to judgmental parents in relation to this in 1 minute, please.
Well, I think it's counterproductive, actually, to be judgmental. You must hear someone out before you judge the person. The Bible says, judge not, that you may not be judged without prejudice, whether it's your child or not. I think people should hear people out before they are able to make conclusions, including parents. And I think this child can discuss with his father, or he could discuss with his pastor or with his counselor, so that he doesn't get, bitter. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So he doesn't get bitter. The Bible says, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, not unto mother, not unto father, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. God bless you. I appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, all our speakers. And of course, thank you so much, all our viewers. Thank you for sending your questions in. It has been an engaging section. Thank you so much for VoxNet for powering this episode. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time. God bless you. Bye.